Hey, sports fans, PB&Z, Sports Chaos. Guess what? Something broke. It's Christmas weekend again for us men. Football week 3 in the playoffs. We love it. We're going to talk a little about this week's game. We're going to talk last week's games too, BB, in 1 minute. But first, I got to give one big shout out. Congratulations. Big PAPI, which is your nickname apparently. Big PAPI is in the Hall of Fame. Not PB, but the other Big PAPI, D.O., David Ortiz. Yeah, there we go. David Ortiz, the other Big PAPI's in the Hall of Fame on the first ballot. And by the way, the only guy elected to the Hall of Fame this year, he's going to have his own ceremony on July 24th. I will be watching. PB, are you fully supporting PB in the Hall of Fame on the first ballot?
Yeah, absolutely. I know people make the argument, oh, he's just hit it for most of his career. But he still, I mean, that was his job. His job was to, hit, and that's what he did great. So I have no problems with it at all. By
the way, he broke a curse, right?
He did.
The curse of the Bambino. Hey, I got PB, and I have a little beef with the Hall of Fame, and I think about this all the time. Right now, because Bonds and Sosa and Clemens are off the ballot, that means, think about this, the all-time hits leader, Pete Rose, gone. The all-time home run leader, Bonds, gone. The guy with the most Cy Young awards, which is the best pitcher in baseball, 7 times, gone. And the only guy to hit 60 home runs 3 times in his career, gone, cannot be in the Hall of Fame, at least at this point in time. I have a problem with that. The greatest player in the sport, I don't care whatever they did, should be in the Hall of Fame. That's my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, I think as the baseball writers, which obviously the ones that vote in the players, as that starts to turn over a bit and there's some fresh blood in there, maybe they'll get some honorary votes later and get in. But
you know what? When you're the all-time greatest home run hitter, all-time greatest hits leader, one of the greatest all-time pitchers with the most Cy Youngs, you should be in the Hall of Fame. I don't know. That's my opinion. But anyways, we'll move on.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, plus they all played in the same era, so they were playing against each other. It's not like, you know what I mean? So that's just more of an argument.
Yeah, we're not comparing eras here, right? You're right. That's a good point, PB. It's the same era, right?
Yeah.
All right. Hey, football. We're going to talk some football. By the way, another potential Hall of Fame, well, not a potential, he will be a Hall of Famer, retired this week. Big Ben Roethlisberger from the Pittsburgh Steelers. He officially announced it. We've been talking about he's going to be done for this year, all year long, but it's official. But the other news, Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers did not say they would definitively return next year. Could we see 3 of the greatest quarterbacks ever on the Hall of Fame ballot in 5 years?
Yeah, they could all make it in the same year if they all end up retiring this year. It's very possible. I think Rodgers is going to come back, though, one way or the other. Brady's probably about 50-50, and of course, Ben's already packed it in, so we'll see.
Imagine that, huh? All right. Hey, another big offseason move here. Sean Payton, he's taking a leave of absence, basically. He's done for a year, whatever he says, right? Is that startling to you?
He may. I mean, coaches are more likely to kind of move around and come back. I think come out of retirement, right? If that's what he's doing, is he retiring or is he just kind of taking a year off?
Is it really though? How many times? Who's the last coach you said that said I'm retiring and then he's coming back? I can't think of one.
Yeah, I mean that's a good point. I see this guy connected to football in some way. I mean, some people put saying he might become, get in the newsroom or in the, be an analyst or something like that, which I could see him doing for sure. But I think he's got some coaching years in front of him.
Babyface Sean, I'm surprised. He's 58 years old. Did you know that?
No, he doesn't look it. But...
No, he doesn't. Oh, all right. Well, we'll see. Hey, speaking of other coaches, the Packers offensive coordinator is hired. I can't remember his. I don't know his name, but anyways, Hackett. That's right, Nathaniel Hackett. He's going to Denver. Does that mean Rodgers might follow?
I mean, that's the speculation right now. The media is playing that card very heavily right now. Right. I mean, Rodgers is the one argument of him getting into Denver is that they have a pretty good core there. They have some good skill players, receivers, obviously, with Patrick and Judy and then Javonte Williams, the rookie, he's the real deal. So
Yes.
offensively, and they have a good offensive line, so they can protect Rodgers and let him do his thing. So it's a good space. And then, of course, Vic Fangio, with his defensive mind, has built that team up to have a pretty decent defense over the 3 or so years he was there. So it's a good landing place where he could do well. The challenge is he's in the AFC and he's in the AFC West. So he's got Herbert and Mahomes he's got to deal with twice each year and probably meet
Derek Carr's no slouch.
Yeah, right. And then on top of that, you got guys like Burrow and Allen and everything else you got to compete with. So it's going to still be tough to win a ring on that team in the next, 1 or 2 years, given the competition in the AFC right now. So that's where, if he stays with Green Bay, they're pretty much a shoo-in to win the division again next year and be a top seeded team and are in the top few anyways, right? I think the path is easier in the NFC. So it depends what he wants out of his career and what he wants out of the end of his, out of the end of his career. I think that second ring is something he really needs, and people are saying he needs that second ring. So
I'm with you. He has to have it. I mean, I don't think you can put him in the top 10 of all time without that second ring. So we'll say, hey, speaking of the NFC North, this is interesting. So the Bears, they fired a head coach named Matt and a GM named Ryan. And then this week they hired a GM named Ryan and a head coach named Matt. WTF? What are the Bears up to? Are they stupid?
Maybe they'll make a trade for Matt Ryan, quarterback.
Oh my God. Yeah, that's a good move. That might happen. All right. All right. Let's talk about last week's game before we talk about this week's game, because last week was an epic weekend. Do you agree?
It was probably one of the best weekends of football I can recall.
Probably. It was easily the best weekend ever, at least in the playoff history, without a doubt. When you say 3 games went down to the last play of the game, right, for a team to win, and then the other game went into overtime based on the last play of the game, it's an epic all-time weekend. I got one complaint. Please, NFL, stop playing NFL playoff games in cities that the temperature is below 0 or 10 degrees at nighttime. The Packers game should never have been at 8 p.m. Never, ever, ever, ever. That was a horribly boring game. I know it was a great finish, but it was a boring game. That's my only complaint. By the way, speaking of that game, it is also my biggest upset. What do you think?
Yeah, I think a lot of people had the Packers number 1 seed. I mean, people knew Tennessee's number 1 seed could be a one and done team. I was saying they were a one and done team all along. Not surprising that they lost to me anyways. But Green Bay, people had them in the Super Bowl. Well, they had a Green Bay, Tampa Bay conference final at least, right? So yeah, I would say that was probably the biggest of the upsets.
Considering, playing in Lambeau at 8 o'clock at night in like 11, 10, 9-degree temperature, whatever it was. I'm with you. I think it was the biggest upset. By the way, it was also maybe one of the more poorly coached games ever, special teams wise anyways. When you have a block, was it a field goal, extra point? A field goal, right? Then you have a blocked punt for a TD. And by the way, I watched that. I watched it on my DVR because I couldn't stay up that late. I'm an old guy. San Fran rushed 5 guys. Only 4 really rushed. 1 guy was a fake rusher. Green Bay had 8 blockers on that play, on that punt. The guy that rushed over center, by the way, he didn't stunt. He just simply rushed by the center, blocked the kick. That should, in Pop Warner, that should never happen, PB. Horrible. Do you agree?
Yeah, that was a big play too. It was the first touchdown of the game, right? And it was a special teams touchdown.
Hey, by the way, Deebo Samuel is suddenly, he's one of my favorite players in the game. He's unbelievable. Hey, Patriots fans, Deebo was drafted after N'Keal Harry and DK Metcalf, who's pretty good too, and then Deebo Samuel. Could we not have done better, Patriots, between one of those two guys?
I know. That bothers me when I see that.
All right, so the Titans game, you just mentioned that a minute ago. That was a 50-50. You had Titans as a one-and-done team. You were correct about that. Bengals on a field goal at the end of the game. But PB, no team should ever win a playoff game when they got sacked 9 times. Do you agree?
Yeah, unless
you can't get sacked 9 times in a playoff game and win. It should never happen.
Well, there's 2 things there. First of all, Tennessee's offense was lethargic, and the other thing is the Bengals' offense. They're high risk, high reward type offense. So you're going to get sacked 9 times, but you're going to make 9 plays that are probably 25, 30 yards or more too in a game. So
we'll talk about that momentarily because I got a question for you on that. All right. By the way, before we get there, Sunday looked like, I mean, first of all, Tampa Bay and the Rams, Tampa Bay goes down 27-3. And when it was 20-3, I was like, please, score another touchdown. Or I was 24-3, I'm sorry. Kick a field goal, give Brady a 27-3 deficit. And they did. And then what happened? Brady came back. One of the most unbelievable, other than the Atlanta game, comebacks ever in the NFL. This game was probably one of the best games of the last 3 years before the last game. We'll talk about that momentarily. But 2 things happened, PB. First of all, Cameron Brake didn't get the first down on 3rd and 9 with about a minute left, right? It was 4th and 1. So what happens? Playoff Lenny has to go for the first down. What's he do?
yeah, he breaks it outside. It looked like he was going to go right in for the behind his blockers, and he just punched it outside and ran it in for a touchdown.
I say this: if he gets tackled, or first of all, if Cameron Brake gets the first down, the game's over. You know why? Because now Tampa Bay can run the ball once or twice, eat the clock, throw a touchdown, whatever it is, win the game.
Well, not win the game. That would have been tied. They would have had to go for 2 to win it. They were down 7.
No. They still scored anyways, right? I'm talking about on the third down play. If Cameron gets the first,
right,
it's now first down as opposed to 4th and 1.
Right.
At that point in time, they could run the ball once or twice, eat clock, and then score the touchdown that Lenny scored. But he scored with 50 seconds left of the game.
But that would have tied the game.
It tied the game anyways.
Right, but when you said they would have won the game.
No, yeah.
It went to overtime.
They would have lost it at that point in time.
Right, it would have went to overtime.
That's right. Which everybody knows they would have won the coin flip like James White in Super Bowl against Atlanta, and it would have been, history again. Bad play. But the worst play of all, Todd Bowles. His head coaching career is over. He'll never be a head coach. Why do you call a play with 20 seconds left in the game, all out blitz, cover 0? For you fans that don't know what cover 0 means is there's no one back deep. Everybody's man-to-man. There's no free safety like Russ Wicker on the field, covering play in center field. And by the way, your center fielder, Antoine Winfield, who I love, now has to cover one of the better receivers in the game one-on-one. Didn't work out. Boom, ball game. Todd Bowles, you're done.
And the worst part about that was on the first play, they actually sacked Stafford for 1 yard. He kind of tried to run it up the middle. They got him. It was 2nd and 11. And then they ran 2 plays and were in field goal range. I thought that game had overtime written all over it.
Horrible. Speaking of horrible coaching, let's talk about the other game. KC and Buffalo, a great game. It didn't look that way at the beginning, but the fourth quarter with 25 points in the last 1 minute and 54 seconds is unbelievable in football history, never mind playoff football history. Unbelievable, the scores they put on the board. But Buffalo, why do you kick the ball out of the end zone with 13 seconds left?
That's a great point. I mean, you put that ball right on the 1 or 2. Yeah, even if you put it on the 5-yard line, let's say, that means
you squib it, Paul. PB, even if you squib it to the 40, 5 seconds come off the clock.
Yeah. Well, the clock doesn't start until someone touches it. right?
But
So
even
on a
so,
kickoff.
even if you touch
So-
it, you can't. But by the time you down the ball, 3 seconds come off the clock. So now
Well,
you're down
yeah.
to 10.
Yeah, but I think if you kick it to the 1 or 2 and make them run it out to the 20 or 25.
One or the other. You squib it or
taking-
kick it to the 1 or 2. But either way, you're going to make them run the ball.
Right. Yeah, and then, right, so there's another good point. They were probably more afraid of them running it back, I guess. Again, bad coaching. I think the odds were better in your favor to not kick it into the end zone.
It was an epic game, though. I mean, that was the conclusion of you thought Tampa Bay and LA could not get any better, right?
Right. So let me ask you this, that game being a 6 o'clock game, were you able to stay up real time to see the end of it Sunday night?
I watched the next morning on DVR. Because I wanted to analyze. I had to analyze what was going on. Even if I watched it, I would have been groggy. I'm like, I got to see this thing. I got to analyze it. And the minute it happened, the minute they scored, the Buffalo scored a touchdown, I go squib kick, squib kick, squib kick. No, they didn't squib kick it. I didn't understand it. Now, I will say this. I will give Buffalo one little leeway. If Tyreek Hill was back, yeah, maybe I kick it away. But he wasn't back. They had 2 timeouts. They could have lined up, saw Tyreek wasn't there, called a timeout, made a substitution.
Right. Well, and then the other part about that game is, the worst that could happen is they tied it, which is what happened, right? They had 13 seconds there in those 2 plays. They tied it. At least it went to overtime still, right? So they still had a chance. They weren't giving the game up by doing that. They were just giving up the fact that they could win. It was going to overtime. Now they're in overtime. They lose the toss. KC goes down and scores on their first drive. And Allen never even touched the ball in overtime. So now what do we think about that? Because they've already changed the rules once when you could kick a field goal to win it and said, no, at least both teams have to possess the ball if you're going to kick a field goal. But wouldn't that same theory kind of hold true? Shouldn't both teams at least have a chance to possess the ball in an overtime in the NFL?
Well, how ironic is that? Because the Chiefs cried about that when it happened against the Pats, right?
Yeah. So I don't know. I still think that, especially in the playoffs, maybe in regular season, you keep it the way it is, but maybe you change the playoff rules, just like in hockey. Hockey does their little 3-on-3 antics for 5 minutes and all this stuff during the regular season to kind of get one team to score and get the 2 points. When the playoffs roll around, it's a different overtime. It's a full-on 20-minute 5-on-5 regular overtime period. Maybe the NFL should consider making different rules for the overtime for the playoffs.
Personally, I love what college does. Put the ball on the 25. Each team gets a chance for the ball, and there you go.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of that, but
well, some of the
I'd rather see.
greatest games I've ever seen has been that.
What I'd rather see is a full quarter regular play. You play it out. You score. You can score 5 touchdowns. Yeah,
but my only problem with that, PB, is what if it goes beyond the whole quarter? I like the 25-yard line. By the way, I've coached in the game like that.
Maybe
it is the most
do that.
intense game ever in your life. When you have to coach that type of game, they call it, what I forget we call it. But anyways, when you have to coach that type of game, 25 yards, you got to score. The other team gets the ball, or you have to stop them if you don't score. It's intense. It's freaking intense. So I like it.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on. Hey, this week, let's talk about these week's games. All right, let's start with the first one. Cincinnati goes to KC. KC, by the way, beat Cincinnati. Cincinnati, I'm sorry, beat KC in week 17 when that was kind of a playoff game. KC had to win that game for home field advantage, which they love to have, and a bye. They didn't do it. Cincinnati wanted to get in the playoffs. They didn't need it after all because Baltimore lost. But Cincy handed it to them in a very good game offensively, 34-31. What do you think?
Yeah, and Chase had 11 catches, 266 yards receiving, I think, 3 touchdowns, and he went completely off that game. And if Kansas City is thinking about that and trying to double him for this game and try to keep him out of the game, obviously it's just going to open up Higgins and Boyd, and Burrow will find those receivers. Burrow's shown me a lot as a quarterback. This game is going to be a shootout. I really think it's going to be a shootout. I do think Cincinnati has a chance to win. I've liked Cincinnati all along here in the playoffs. I predicted the Cincy KC AFC final, and here we are. But KC's at home. KC's on the run. Mahomes is looking good. I can't pick against Kansas City at home in this AFC Championship game. I think KC makes it and gets the third Super Bowl appearance in a row on Sunday.
I'm kind of with you as well, but you're right about the fact that Cincinnati, first of all, their three receivers could be number ones on every single team in the NFL, probably, except for Kansas City.
Yeah, right.
Don't you agree?
Yeah.
And by the way, Ty Boyd, he may be the player of the game, because if you double on Jamar, if you double on T, I don't know how you do it, but if you do, Boyd's going to go crazy. And oh, by the way, I forgot one other thing. The best running back between these four teams left is on Cincinnati, Joe Mixon, who is the second best rusher in the NFL or AFC, I'm sorry, and probably the best pass receiving running back left in the playoffs. What do you do?
Yeah, right. And you didn't even mention Uzama, who's also having a pretty good playoff so far.
Yes,
tight
correct.
end. So yeah, this team, they are a team to be reckoned with on offense for sure. That's why I think it's going to be a shootout. I really do.
But we already mentioned the 9 sacks last week. KC has improved their pass rush this year. Melvin Ingram, we know we have a fan out there from KC. He likes to tell us Melvin Ingram's the best trade mover ever in the NFL at the midseason mark. He has paid off. Chris Jones moving on the inside has paid off. I will say this, they don't need to get 9 sacks. If they get 4 sacks, Cincy has no shot.
Okay. So you're picking the Chiefs. I'll take the Chiefs. So you think they'll cover? They're favored by 7.5. You think they'll cover?
I don't think so. I think Cincinnati covers.
Yeah, I do too. I think Cincinnati can cover the game.
All right, let's go to the next game, man. This game, first of all, we got another three-peat going on, right? San Fran and since LA has played twice this year already. By the way, PB, I got a little stat for you. You're gonna love this one. 23 times in NFL history, we've had teams that have played for a third time when other team was 2-0. Do you have any idea the record?
Yeah, it's not like people think. It's like 14-8 or something like that, right?
You are correct. It's 14-8. You're right. The 2-0 team has won 14 times in those games. So whoever thinks you can't beat a team 3 times, guess what?
It happens. Yeah, it happens 7% of the time almost, right? 70% of the time.
And by the way, San Fran is 6-0 against this LA team, which means 2-0 this year, 2-0 last year, 2-0 the year before. That means the last 3 years they swept them, right?
You know, yeah, they own them.
They do own them. All right. So what do you think?
Yeah, I think San Fran matches up really well against this team. I mean, they've been that kind of, no pun intended, but they've been the wild card in these playoffs, right? They go in and beat Dallas.
Well, PB, let's think about that. Not only this playoff, but they had to beat the Rams in the last week of the season to get to the playoff. Yeah. They've played 3 one-and-done games.
You're right. You're right. New Orleans would have got in if San Fran lost that game. And they were down 17-3, I think, in that game as well.
17-0 at halftime.
17-0. So they're resilient. And I think so far, Matthew Stafford is living up to we said there's a lot of pressure on him, probably more pressure than anyone else going into this playoffs. And he's meeting those demands. He's playing very well. And Jimmy G's not really playing that well. He's actually playing kind of poorly. So the only room San Francisco has to go is kind of up. And the only room that the Rams have is to kind of go down. So I look at that and look at this matchup. And like you said, what Debo can do, and is Dahl the guy you got to put on Debo, or are you going to put him on rushing after Jimmy G? Like, how are you going to manage all that, right? And then you got Mitchell, and you got guys like Ayuk and Kittle, and I think they can nick and pick at you all day long and keep them off the field and kind of drive them crazy. And then I think defensively, they can rattle Stafford. I think they can rattle Stafford.
Yes.
Because they're one of the few teams in the NFL that can really get after you with their front 4 without having to rush a 5th guy. So I'm going to say San Francisco in this game. They're going to be that 3 teams all on the road making the Super Bowl, just like Tampa Bay had to do last year. Tampa Bay was the wild card. They had to go on the road. They won 3 road games, represented the NFC in the Super Bowl. we'll see it again this year with Niners. So we're going to have a repeat of the Super Bowl from 2 years ago, the Niners and the Chiefs.
Wow. So you got, all right. I am tempted to take the 49ers. I really, really am. But first of all, I don't want them to get 6 Super Bowl titles, which they would if they win the Super Bowl. Them in Pittsburgh and New England will be tied at that point in time. And I'm not a 49ers fan. I will say this. If Jimmy G throws an interception, Rams win. But if Stafford throws a pick 6, 49ers win. I think it's less likely the pick 6 happens. I get 49ers losing, Rams win.
Okay. What about the spread on that one? That one's, I think, a 3.5 or 4-point favorite for the Rams right now. Do you like the points?
I think it's a field goal game. So if
Yeah.
it's 3.5, I think the 49ers cover.
Yeah. It's going to be a great game. It's going to be a close game. I agree.
Yeah. Hey, by the way, if the Rams win, PB, listen to this. They will be the first team ever to play the championship game in their home stadium and play in the Super Bowl. Because don't forget, Tampa Bay, they were in the home stadium for the Super Bowl. They were not in the home stadium last year for the NFC Championship, right?
Right. Here's another interesting thing. If San Francisco wins and goes to Super Bowl, it'll automatically be a rematch of a previous Super Bowl because they played the Bengals in the Super Bowl in Super Bowl 23 and they lost that. I mean, they beat the Bengals. I think it was 20-16 in that game. And if they played the Chiefs, that would be a repeat Super Bowl from 2 years ago when the Chiefs won their first Super Bowl with Mahomes. So
yeah, the 49ers, they bookend their 80s by beating the Chiefs in 81 and beating them in not the Chiefs, I'm sorry. The 49ers in 81 and 89.
Yeah.
All
So
right.
yeah, so this is gonna be interesting weekend. So
It will. It's Christmas for us men. We love it. All right, PB. We'll talk to you soon, brother. Have a good weekend.
all right, endure the storm. Endure the storm tomorrow.
Oh, yeah. 2 feet of snow. Here we go.